Welcome to the Simply Authentic podcast with Angie and Tanya, where we hope to inspire you to dream big and push past your fear, empower you to take charge of your own life, and challenge you to be the most authentic self you can be.
Welcome back to the Simply Authentic podcast. I'm Tanya Murfin.
And I'm Angie Mullings. And today we're very excited because we have an in-studio guest, Logan Aguirre, publisher of 417 Magazine, is joining us today. Welcome.
Hi, Logan.
Hi, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Oh, so happy to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Sure. So let's start by telling our listeners a little bit about you and family and whatever you want to cover.
All right. Well, I am not a native of Springfield or 417 land, as we call it. 417 is the area code here. I grew up moving all over the country, following my dad's career in TV news. So while he was working in TV stations, my mom was working in marketing and public relations. So our dinner time conversations were fascinating. Either what crazy thing happened on the news or what cool event she was working on. So I knew that I wanted to go into something similar. So I went to Mizzou Journalism School, which is where my dad went. My mom went to the University of Florida Journalism School. They actually met. They had their same job out of college. They both started at the same radio station in Jackson, Mississippi. So he was the on-air guy. She was in sales. And the very first day he saw her walk by his little DJ window, in the radio station, asked her out in May, and they got married in October.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
And my dad is from Springfield, so after I graduated high school, they ended up down here. He was running a TV station down here at the time. Okay. And so when I went to Mizzou, I thought I wanted to be in broadcast. That's what I started in. And then reflecting on growing up, moving all the time, although I learned a lot, I knew that wasn't really the life that I would want my children to have. And so I went into the advertising sequence at Mizzou. And my dream was to live in New York City. So I moved to New York right after graduation. And eventually my parents came to own 417. They kind of rescued it from going out of business. And eventually my career in St. Louis was growing to a point and the magazine had grown to a point where they asked if I would come join them. And that was 17 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. There's a couple of things. First of all, I think it's interesting. I think you're part of 417. I just, I as a general person out there, I would have thought you've always been here.
I know.
That's interesting because you've always been a part of
and it is the place I've lived the longest in my whole life. So,
and then secondly, I didn't remember there was an owner before your parents. So
yeah, a radio station had started it.
Okay.
And my parents actually had left corporate America. They left the TV station they were both working at here in town, started their own marketing firm. At the same time, a family member was starting Liberty Bank, which is now Simmons. Yeah. And they hired my parents to do all their marketing. Yeah. And 417 called on them to advertise for the bank. I see. Okay. And that's kind of what got them started talking about the magazine. And my dad learned a lot about, they actually were trying to hire my parents to help market the magazine as a marketing agency. Right. And through that, just said, maybe you have a better handle on this than we do. And do you want to buy it? And my mom said, absolutely not. And my dad said, yeah, I think so. That's pretty much how all their decision making goes. And so it was in a really bad shape, but it had a great name and it had so much potential for just being a force for good stories and positivity and making you proud of where you live. And I think for my dad moving around the country and probably trying to stay away from his hometown. Yeah. Then when he got back here, realizing, not every place is like this. Right. And his parents had passed away and they were very modest. They left a very little amount to him, and that's what he was able to use to buy the magazine. So he always called the magazine a love letter to his hometown.
That's sweet. So how old is the magazine?
It's 25 years this year.
25. Wow.
We're celebrating 25 years. Yeah. So when they bought it was only just a few years old, and I guess 3 years old. So it was really just a name and not a whole lot else. Yeah.
So how did you get to your current position? I've heard you tell this story before, but for our listeners that don't know your trek to publisher, tell us your journey?
Okay. Well, I started on a smaller magazine that we had at the time called Go Magazine. And I guess I'll just say from the beginning, I just did whatever the next job in the building that needed to be done, right?
Yeah.
That's how a family
Yes.
business is. So
Yes.
when I got there, they said, here's this thing we need help with. We need events, we need sales, we need marketing. And it was called Go Magazine. It was like a downtown alt weekly. And it was a blast to work on at that stage of my life because I knew no one here, except my husband and my parents and my brother. And it was just a fun, we launched a ton of events, and it was really just a great opportunity to get a lot of young professionals together. And we had a blast with that. Well, during the recession in 2008, we folded it, and we kept we had such talent on that magazine. So we kept all of them, just put them into other positions. And at that point, my parents told me I had to be the sales manager. I was like, oh no, those salespeople are so scary. And they let me have it, man, like trial by fire. That's an interesting way to learn. And so it really just kind of went like that, just whatever came up, or I saw opportunities where we could do something bigger and better. And they're like, okay, go for it kind of thing. And then my dad, we had written a story in 417 called Generation Next, where we profiled some family businesses in town, and it got great response. And so my dad started thinking about a business magazine. And so something that really is a business lifestyle magazine. You know, we have an awesome business journal in town. They do a great job with weekly business news. But the storytelling aspect of the wins, the losses, learning from these great entrepreneurs, being inspired by startups that are hustling out there, you know, learning from the legends and from the people, you know, just trying to start their businesses. And he had the idea to do Biz 417, and then he said, "So go figure out how to launch a magazine," kind of thing. And that was neat because I never built one from the ground up. And so eventually I just moved into a role where I was really his executor. So like he's got the vision, I'm figuring out how to get it integrated through the building. And my mom was always in operations and, you know, handling payroll. She did a lot of sales too at the beginning and has a great marketing brain. So I kind of worked with both of them on both of those things. And my brother was really involved in the business too. So we were working on scaling it for a transition plan. And then his wife had the opportunity to move to Kansas City for her career. And so he left in 2015. And all of a sudden I was like the last man standing. What? I didn't know you could leave a family business. And so I was named president. And that was actually really hard because I had never envisioned myself working there without my brother. It just had never occurred to me that I wouldn't always have him right there. And, you know, when you are working a family business and then you work with a sibling, just the trust you have. And also it's a sibling. So they're going to also tell you when you've royally screwed up and,
shoot you straight.
You know, when you're a jerk. And so that was a hard transition. It really was. But eventually, you know, I kind of figured it out, and I promoted some people within that are on my leadership team now that have been with me a long time, 13 years and 16 years, Amy and Megan.
Awesome.
And then in 2020, I purchased the magazine for my parents. So we finished out the succession plan. It just went a lot differently than I thought it would at the beginning.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole lot there to unpack. But let's start with the challenges that you have working with family. I mean, it's great. And like you said, working with a sibling, you know that person, you've grown up with them, you know their personality, what they're capable of, their strengths and so on. But what are the challenges of doing that?
Well, I think I'll say that once I got over the fact that he had left, then I thought, oh my gosh, I have my brother back. And so now when we get together, you know, we just get to...
It's not all business.
Yeah. And so that, you know, that is really hard, and that boundary is really, really hard. And even now, I mean, my parents aren't involved in the business, but they love it and they want to know what's going on. And so it's hard not to even drift into that even now. Because they're so proud and excited and they want to hear everything. Or if something's not going well, they're like, how can we help you? And so, the boundary part is really hard. And, you know, there's good and bad that comes with that. But there were times when we'd be, you know, at the lake and I'd be like, Dad, I'm here to just float in the pool.
Right.
Let's talk about something else, you know, so just trying to, okay. It's hard when it's your whole your everything.
Yes.
When you own a
Yeah.
business, it's your identity, it's your
Yes.
livelihood. You're passionate about it, so it's hard to turn it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We understand that with real estate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, you guys can. Never
we
stop.
can't turn it off,
ever.
right?
Yeah.
So we hang out with all kinds of
Other
real
people,
estate friends.
yeah,
So
who get
even
it.
when we're trying to relax,
Yeah.
we're talking about real
Right.
estate.
Exactly. Are you responding to a text?
Yes.
Or you're on the phone.
Exactly.
Yeah. People who get that. Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have a question for you, Logan. You have really great content, and we can look forward to seasonal publications every year and the different things that you put out. How do you, first of all, how do you come up with that plan, and when is that plan expired? So if it's, all about local eateries and you do that every year, how many years does it take for that to be tired and you kind of have to reframe that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that we have a couple things we do every year, no matter what. Yeah. So one great example I would say that I'm really proud of that just came out today. We got it in the office and we all got to look at it together. Is our Top Doctors issue.
Yeah.
So we've done Top Doctors, probably for
a long
25
time.
years,
Yeah.
maybe not that long,
Yeah.
and so it's an annual survey. The doctors recommend each other. So we ask them, if you or a loved one were sick, who would you recommend in these categories? And that's how the ballot, that's we just take that data and
I didn't know that.
and that's
Yeah.
what we publish.
Yeah.
And people look to that, if they are sick or a loved one's sick or someone recommends a doctor, they look there. Do their peers believe that they are the best? Those guys know who's good and who's not. You're right. So every year we have to think about the cover and how are we going to do the cover differently. Yeah. And every year we have to think about what else are we going to package up with this list that gives it, a fresh take. So when we sat down for our editorial brainstorm this year, I had just been to an appointment inside the Holston Cancer Center. I had to go for my skin cancer check at Swan. And there was a woman in the atrium playing the piano. And just this beautiful piano music wafting up. And if you think about during COVID, they couldn't do any of that. They cut all that out. And so when I got to the editorial meeting, I said, what if instead of writing about, we definitely need to cover our physicians, but what if we write about these people who give their time to volunteer at the hospital? And let's ask the hospitals, who are some of their best volunteers, and can we please talk to this woman who plays the piano in the middle of the day?
Yeah.
And so it's the piano player, it's the a profile of a guy who takes his therapy dog in, and their why is you just can't help but get teary-eyed when you're reading it. So there's always a new way to do it that we haven't done before.
Yeah.
And then actually our cover, we're super proud of, and you'll see it when you see it, but our editor, it's all made out of paper, how she designed the cover. So it's you'll just have to see it, but it took hours. And so she really did craft it from hand the way that, and then we photographed it. So, we always have creative ideas and creative people. And so there's new ways to do lots of different things. But, so I don't know. We don't run out of takes on it. Yeah.
Well, and if you're working with a staff who are all equally creative in their own right, then the ideas never expire.
Right. Yeah.
And someone like you or your other staff members are in a place and just suddenly have a great idea.
Yeah. And you just are, kind of are always thinking, oh, that'd be a good story.
Yeah.
That's how I think of everything.
Yeah.
Even if something's going horribly wrong, I'm like, well, this will be a good story one day.
Yeah, right.
So I have a follow-up question on kind of that topic. So when you have this great idea or you think of a great story or with someone, how do you all communicate that? So we're using a lot of Google Docs with this podcast, and we're constantly going back and forth and filling stuff out and adding, collaborating. So what mechanism do you guys use to share ideas and to keep everything straight.
Mm-hmm.
You laugh.
I'll get back. I don't know. I'll let you know when I figure it out. Yeah,
makes me feel
we have
better.
like a Google sheet for everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yes.
We actually use a software called Monday.com, and it's a project
I've used that.
management workflow software that has changed our lives because we have so many deadlines all the time with
Yeah.
all the magazines, all the digital, all the events, all the promotions, and none of it lived in one place. And so it was really hard to onboard someone and for them to get their head around everything that was going on at once.
Yeah.
And so Monday has helped because when you log in, it shows you all the things that you need to be doing that week, because all the timelines are already in there. But we work on a lot of timelines
Yeah.
and a lot of collaboration within docs for sure, like
Yeah.
you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I visualize? I have to make a movie reference. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. And they sit around the table and Andy wants to write something serious and her boss is like, next, or next idea. Or that's what I envision when I think about those brainstorming sessions.
We have really good data on who our core readers are. And so we've created personas and they have names and they have faces. And so everything we talk about, our 417 core reader is Beth. And secondary audience is Carol and John. So Carol and John are empty nesters. Beth is still probably has children in her home. She's active. She's running around all the time. Like, how are we going to get Beth to be interested in this? And it just really helps frame everything. I think about before we had our personas, we were doing a camping feature and somebody in an editorial meeting pitched primitive camping. And in the nicest way possible, I had to say, like, absolutely not. Are we going to write about primitive camping? And now we can say, I just don't know if I see Beth doing primitive camping. I think Beth wants to stay in the glamping hut.
Beth likes air conditioning
At Big Cedar Lodge, And it's like, oh, okay. So it just kind of helps. We even had like this, we did a hiking issue recently. We had this beautiful photo of a woman and her kid with this like amazing view. And I'm like, if I'm Beth, I'm seeing that and I'm like, my kid's about to fall off the cliff. They're like, oh, good point. So we just like change we just crop it in a little or, so you just kind of have to like constantly be thinking in terms of her.
I love that.
And then that helps kind of take away some of the, people just are, because most of our staff, no, they're not Beth. They're not Carol and John.
Right.
So they're having to pitch stories and ideas for a demographic that they're not a part of.
Right.
And so having those personas really helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So you've got several magazines, different publications, and you had an original 417 magazine that was a tried and true. You knew it was a great product. What's it like to take a risk on a different product, because you have several now, and you might list them because I don't know all of them, but I'm just curious what that looks like and how risky that is to try something new.
In my time of owning the magazine, we haven't launched a new magazine. I mean, we've launched some new initiatives and that sort of thing. But there was a time when my parents bought Wichita Magazine and tried to diversify that way. And it was really hard to duplicate the magic of what we do in a town where you're not living and just breathing it all the time. So we found that was a challenge and ended up selling it to an owner there. Biz was just an amazing deal. We sold it out right away for the whole first year, like on the day we launched it. It was incredible. Wow. So you really have to just know is there an audience for it and is there an advertiser base for it? So if you have both of those things, you're good. Right. But like Go Magazine had a great audience, but it was hard to find an advertising base for that younger downtown. I mean, there's just only so much. Sure. So it's when they started doing more home content in the magazine and attracting more home advertisers. And as that content grew, there got to a point where it was like, I think this could spin out and be its own magazine. I think there's a subscriber base for it because we've seen it grow within our core magazine. So that's kind of how Home got launched as a quarterly. That's how Bride started with Bride content in there. And as it grew, then you can kind of spin that off. But, if you don't have an advertiser base for it that wants to reach that audience, then, you can't really have one without the other.
They go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
Right.
Because you can write content all day long, but it's very expensive to print it and publish it and get it to people. So you have to make sure there's an audience that wants to speak to the reader. Yeah.
So 417 sponsors events throughout the year, and probably COVID caused a little bit of a change in those sponsorships. Tell us what you do throughout the year now in 2023.
We, as far as our own events, yes. So right now we have a few signature events, but you're right. We used to have a whole lot more.
Yeah.
And one thing that we play the great game of business at 417 Magazine, which is an open book management operating system. So we're real dialed in on our financials. And one thing that was really eye-opening, the year that we used to have this huge fashion show event, which was a blast.
I loved it.
It was a ton of work, but it was a lot of fun.
Yes.
And the year that we had to cancel it 2 weeks before the year of COVID, 2 weeks before we were going to do it. And I was so scared to see our April numbers at the end. And we did better in April than we planned. And it was because it was just eye-opening how much of a drain the show was on time and resources. And so it kind of sent us on a journey of like, we had time in 2020 because, you had staff and you had to keep going even though everything was weird. We evaluated every single thing we were doing and we just made some big choices.
Sure.
And it's been awesome. It's been great to just really narrow in. So we have Think Summit, which is like a day of TED Talks all about the future of 417 land. We do that in April.
Yeah.
We have Ladies Who Launch, what's coming up, which is has grown into become like a life of its own. We have there's gonna be 550 women there tomorrow.
Wow,
awesome. And then we have our Biz 100 cocktail reception, and we have a Best Places to Work event. So most of our big events right now are all under Biz 417. Okay. And then with 417 Magazine, we do a ton of sponsoring charitable events and leaning into giving our resources that way. And then we have some smaller things that we might do, little pop-up events along the way. But right now, 417 does not have its own big signature event, which is kind of sad. So we're thinking about that. We're thinking about what we might want to do under 417 brand.
Yeah. So Tanya and I, neither one, have been to Ladies Who Launch. We are coming this year,
So
so
glad
we'll
you're
be there
coming.
tomorrow.
We're excited.
But can you give us just a snapshot of what that event looks like?
Sure. I can tell you the why behind.
Yeah.
Let me start there. The first year that we published the Biz 100 and Biz 417, which is a listing of the 100 most influential business leaders in Southwest Missouri, and we have an editorial board that helps pick that. We internally pick it. And when it came out the first time, we got feedback asking why there were only 10 women on the list. So out of 100 people, why are there only 10 women? And I'm like, oh my goodness. I don't know. It hadn't occurred to me. So we started saying, well, who do we miss? Who did we leave off? And nobody could give us an answer of who we left off. It was just more like, oh gosh, we need to have more female leaders in Southwest Missouri.
Yeah.
So what can we do as a brand? We can't just name people to the list to make ourselves feel better,
Sure,
right? So we thought, well, maybe we see a gap in the market for just an awesome content event that is for women, that's leadership driven, that is supportive and encouraging. And so we launched Ladies Who Launch, and now we're in our 5th or 6th year, and it keeps selling out. And I don't know how we're going to get a better venue next year because we're at the biggest one we can be at in town. But it's really high energy. It's really positive. We're not bashing men. We're not bashing women. We're really there to just encourage and connect. And it's really about content, community, and conversation. So, and the connection piece is the biggest. You just hear, I love hearing the stories of women who met in the bathroom line, or they met during our hustle hour, or they met because they were brave enough to sit at a table with someone they didn't know.
Yeah.
You go into those huge rooms and you want to sit next to your best friend. Sure. Also because we're busy, and if we actually can see our best friend, it's huge, right?
Yeah. Right.
But part of the magic of the day is putting yourself in a kind of being brave enough to be in an uncomfortable situation and knowing everyone else in the room is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And our hustle hour, which is our speed networking event, is depending on your personality, the most loved or most hated part of the day.
Yeah.
But we continue, even the people who hate it, we still get responses like, I hated it, but it was probably really good for me.
Yeah. Right.
So, because the feedback is always, I wish there was just more time to meet people, time to meet people. But We have a keynote, a lunch keynote. Desiree Reed-Francois she's the University of Missouri athletic director, the first female athletic director in the SEC and one of the only ones in the whole country.
Wow.
And she's Hispanic and she's an attorney by trade. She's incredible. So her story is Passion Drives Purpose is the name of hers. Then I'll be moderating a panel with 4 of the women from our Women Who Mean Business cover story that we did in March. We'll have Hustle Hour. And then our keynote is an author by the name of Sarah Knight, who wrote the book, The Life-Changing Magic of Not Giving a Fuck, and then followed it up with like Get Your Shit Together book. But she's really all about unapologetic boundaries.
Yeah.
And
I've heard her on a podcast now that
she's
you say
hilarious. And she don't like make a drinking game out of taking a shot every time she says the F word because you won't be able to walk out of there. So we're just like having to warn people, sorry if you don't like hearing the F word, you're going to hear it a lot.
Yeah.
But she's hilarious. But her message is really about just how to unapologetically say no and say it with grace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, just because that is important to you, I'm sorry, it's not important to me. And that's not where she says, stop spending time you don't have with people you don't like doing things you don't want to do.
And as a
Love
woman, that is so hard.
I know. I
But
need it
that
like tattooed on my
resonates
hand
with
or something.
All of us, doesn't it?
I know,
Yes.
and I don't want to let anybody down, and I
Yeah.
don't want to miss out. The missing out is big for me.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a great message, but she does it in a great way, and then we end with rosé, a happy hour with rosé.
I'm so
Can't
excited
complain about that. Me too.
Clear your
Excited. Me too.
calendar.
Yes.
Don't
Yes.
schedule anything.
Yes.
And we'll have a great time. Now, do you know
We're
that
excited.
that this like taken on a life of its own with what people wear?
I
No.
heard that. Amy
Okay.
just told me that.
Okay.
Yeah, pink. I haven't gotten around to telling you pink, right? Or,
I mean, it has just taken a life of
Okay.
its own that people tend to wear the colors of the event. It is completely unintentional, but I tell you because people who don't know, then they get there and they feel like they didn't get the memo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they're mad.
Yeah.
I'm like, why didn't anyone tell me? There's a dress code. Because there's not a dress code.
Well, I'm glad that accidentally came up.
Yes, it did.
Just in case you forgot to tell me.
You can show up in whatever color you want. Just own it, rock it. If you're there in yellow and no one else is, then hey, you're
It'll
going to
be
stand
fine.
out.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
It's okay.
Yes.
Well, we're excited.
Yeah.
I'm so glad y'all are coming.
Yes.
Yes, we are excited. I just want to interject here that I did get to come to the Think Summit for the first time
Yes,
this year.
I was so glad
and
you were
I
there.
loved it. I will tell you that Tanya and I had already talked about putting this podcast together, and I approached a couple of your speakers and said, would you be a guest? So
Yeah.
we're going to have a couple of guests that were
Wonderful.
there. And so it's just if you use that opportunity, like you said, the connection, it's great to hear the speakers and the panelists and all of that. But honestly, what I enjoy is the connections and just being able to meet. I met your husband there.
Okay.
As a matter of fact.
Yeah, he's good people. I like him. Yeah.
I think you should keep him.
Yeah, it is. That's another one that is, like Max Butow from Cox Health, the CEO of Cox Health, brought his entire leadership team this year.
Wow.
And then they all he took them all to dinner afterwards to talk about like their top takeaways. And so it's become a great thing for business leaders, but then I love to see them engaging their teams and getting, just getting people more exposed to where you live and all the great things happening. So it's very easy just if just to read headlines or if you Google this place that, maybe you're thinking like, oh, the world's going to crap, but then you get in there and you're like, look at all these smart, passionate people taking risks, putting big ideas out there, and then all the people there to hear it. And the more of your team that you can get there, just the more people that are bought in on the vision of the community and want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of leaders in the room. Well, I hope to go next year. I
Okay.
wasn't able to attend this year.
It's the first Wednesday in April.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll get on my calendar. So you are very involved in the community, and we'd like to hear a little bit about that. Your leadership roles, such as president of the chamber, that was in the past. Tell us about those opportunities in the community and how that comes back to helping you run your publication.
Sure. I was completely taken by surprise when they asked me to serve on the chamber board. I wasn't really involved in we were chamber members, but I wasn't super active. I wasn't out there trying to I think some people, that's like a path that they really want to get on. And so they do all these things. And I wasn't really at a stage in my life where I had capacity to take all that on as well. And I was so honored because I just think, I just really admire anyone who has ever served on the chamber board or the people that have served as chairman. And so once I got on, I thought, okay, I'm clearing my plate of any other commitments and I'm just going to go all in on this and learn everything I can. And there's so much to learn. And so I just said yes to everything that came my way through it. I'll go to that meeting. I'll go to Jeff City, whatever. I just really immersed myself in it and ended up really loving it. And I think, it's all about how much you put into it. So you can definitely serve on any board and show up for the meeting and leave and write your check. And but that's just not how I operate. Unfortunately, if I'm in at like 150%.
Yeah.
And so that's probably something I should work on. But I just, then eventually they asked me to serve as a vice chairman. And then it got to this point, somebody said, you said yes to that? And I'm like, yeah. And they go, well, that's who they look at. Those are the only people that they can pick for chair. I'm like, no, what? I'm like, well, they're not going to pick me. They're obviously going to pick this other guy. And then it came around and Robin Robeson was the chair before me. And she came to me and she said, if you'll say yes, I think you're the person. I think we've never had back-to-back women. At that point, they'd only had 5 women ever chair the chamber, and the chamber was 100 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? Me? So anyway, that was the choice they made. And when they asked me, it was amazing. And then the timing of it, was all during COVID. So my vice chairman year, or my chair-elect year, was 2020. And it was hard. And I didn't get to experience a lot of the things you normally would as chairman, but that's not why I did it. I did it because I wanted to, just help tell Springfield's story as big as we can.
Sure.
And be a part of helping, where do we want to go and how can we be a part of that? And so what I appreciated about the experience was I got to be at the table on all the calls, all the conversations about when do we open back up, how do we open back up, and being able to be a voice of small business at the table. Because you've got hospitals and they have risks, and you've got higher ed and they've got risks, but we have to remember this is a town built on entrepreneurs and small businesses.
Yes.
And my business is a reflection of the community. So if the community is not healthy, our business isn't healthy.
Right.
And I want to go back to my yoga studio. And I would like to decide whether I get to go back into my yoga studio. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think my yoga studio owners want to welcome the students back in who, want to do it safely. And there's ways to do this.
Yeah.
And we got to open up so much faster than most places.
Yeah.
And we bounced back so much faster. And so it really was beautiful timing in the sense of, just getting to represent in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, story ideas come back to the magazine. Just meeting interesting people. I plan the lineup for Think Summit. I ask all those speakers, and because I'm out there meeting them, and I'm like, you are fascinating.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Sometimes they just tell me one little thread, and I'm like, okay, we gotta.
I need you.
Right.
I need you to come up with 20 minutes about that. You know.
Right.
And so that's the best part of my job is when I love being at the work and I love everybody who's there, but my best days are when I'm out and just connecting with fascinating people.
Right. When you are part of the chamber at a level that you are, you go on these community visits, right? You get to visit. I know last year was Northwest Arkansas, and you've been to different places. One of the themes, and it came up at the Think Summit, was this idea of regionalism. And I know it's not new. I've served on a chamber committee called the Ozarks Regional Economic Partnership. I was part of that. So this idea of regionalism has been around for a long time. But it seems that there's a resurgence in that, is what it seems to me. Can you talk a little bit about what your observations have been with regard to that, and maybe what opportunities we might be missing if we don't look more regionally?
If we don't look regionally, we're really going to be in trouble. We go to Northwest Arkansas, and you're so inspired by everything there, but they don't have anything we don't have. In fact, we have better things than they have. They don't have access to water like we have. We're surrounded by rivers and lakes, and we have just as many outdoor amenities, natural resources. It's just as beautiful here. And we aren't solely reliant on just a couple of big industries or big companies. And they're definitely have been very blessed, and the Waltons have been incredibly generous. And what's amazing about the Walton family there is they see an emerging need in the community, and then they figure out how to fund it from a business perspective. So they work way upstream to fund things that are going to make great businesses. So, I mean, everything they do is super strategic. But we have amazing businesses based here. But we have, like I keep saying, a town of entrepreneurs. I mean, we're so stable because we have so many different great industries here, and we're not reliant on just one big one. So, but I think that when you start zooming out a little bit from Springfield, Branson is a huge opportunity in the lakes for us to be all in together on promoting the Ozarks. And Republic, with their leadership that they have there, they've got it going on.
They do.
Yeah.
And they've been able to really demonstrate, look around at what you have that nobody else has. They have a ton of land, and they have access to, highway, and just say yes and run it like a business, and look how it can grow and how the community can rally around that. And so Springfield doesn't have a lot of land. I mean, we only have so much we can do, but we're the epicenter of all of it. And so what does Springfield have that we can provide that the other towns don't have? And then let the other towns do what they do really well. Right. And but I want to see us embrace the name, the Ozarks. I keep saying we should say we're the gateway to the Ozarks, because you really can't get to the Ozarks except through Springfield. You're right. And I think that besides the show and whatever people want to think about the show, I think for the most part, when people think of the Ozarks, they think of how beautiful it is. And I think we should be all in on that. And then that means maybe eventually Northwest Arkansas is part of our region. Right. We're not far away. No. You can be there like that. And they have biking and we have water. And so maybe, our thing is we can have trails, but there's lots of other things we can leverage ourselves on. We have a huge tourism thing going on already in Branson. We have lakes. We have places that have land that can attract big businesses. So it just makes sense. And if we try to be like, no, this is my town, and then we're not going to get anywhere. No. And really collectively, what we could be doing funding wise and, lobbying wise, when you are all there asking for the same thing together, you get a whole lot farther than just one town asking for this thing.
Very
and
true.
These guys. But that means sometimes your town might not win.
Right.
But you're winning in the big picture because you're getting funding for this big thing that's going to eventually come back to you, or because you see the bigger picture. So it is a mindset shift. And the great thing about those trips is you get everybody fired up. Everybody's on them. Everybody wants to come back and is on the same page. That's where I feel like Think Summit really can have a role as well in educating just a totally different level of wider group of people on some of those same messages, so that we can just continue to get that story woven in.
Right. I hope we continue to have people like Hal Hignan, who was pretty in your face about it at Think Summit. And I love that, because I think it is critically important, and we as realtors can serve a part of that. We have huge lobbying that we do. Our advocacy efforts are second to none, honestly. And so I think we all have to collectively work together and continue pushing that message, because I think it's vital for all of us.
I mean, it's exciting how fast our region is growing already. Yeah. And so, like it or not, it's happening. Yeah. So how do we just really embrace it and be really strategic about it so that we do it the right way?
Right.
Yeah.
So you're a woman leader in the community at your publication, and you're an entrepreneur because your family decided to do this business at one time. Tell us your best lessons that you've learned from being an entrepreneur and being a woman leader.
I think lesson-wise for me, it really comes back to I have to have a discipline around mindset. And it's really easy when you're running a business and you have a lot of people depending on you. And I feel that pressure every day, every night. To like have something throw you off, and then you can go down to like a dark place really fast, right? Yeah. And you don't have a board of directors, or you don't have a boss or a president or somebody that's like, you did great. You got this. Nobody's looking around thinking, have we said something nice to Logan today? Right. And you don't expect them to. That's not their job. Right. So I've just really had to create my own discipline of meditation, yoga, making time to do the things that bring me joy and not feeling badly about that, because I have to mindset wise be healthy for my family, but 100% for the people that show up for me every day. And that means that I have to have that time, and I have to constantly work at it, because you're taking a lot of risk, and there's no backup plan, right? It's not like I'm burnt out, I'm going to go find another job. No, you can't. No. That's not an option. It turns out. So I'm actually taking a 4-week break this summer, right after Lady Sue lunch. The day after, I'm heading out on an RV with my family for 2 weeks, and then I'm taking 2 weeks after that, and I'm shutting off my email, and my team has been really supportive of that. But I just, said to them, like, you just some point have to just kind of have a timeout. Yes. And it's scary and it feels irresponsible, but I just kind of know that I need that. Yeah. And so I think, just that discipline of kind of knowing, like, I have to stay in the right headspace. Yeah. And it's really easy. Some people, not as much as others, but I want to have an abundance mindset and a, grace mindset. And so those are just things that I have daily journaling, and I have to work hard at it. And I think that, because that's how I want to show up. I want to show up energetically for others. Right. But that means that I have to make sure I'm doing what I need to do for myself. Yeah. And I think it's easy to make that the very back burner when you've got kids and everything. Yes. And, but I have just found that if I let that slip, then I can start going down like a spiral real fast. Right. I never sleep on Monday nights. That's just unfortunate for me. Some people have the Sunday scaries. Yes. Yeah. I have the Monday where Mondays. I'm like, oh God, you get back. Like sometimes like Sunday, I'm still like, man, I've got this. This has been a great weekend. And then Monday, I don't know. Like by Monday night, I'm like,
so much to do.
I'm like, yes. So I'm like, oh Lord, I need to learn this lesson. What do I need to do on Monday nights to make myself sleep better? But so I think it's just, the mindset practice is huge.
It is. And
it's a discipline.
It is.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the best word for it. You and I are right on track
we are.
Today,
We're on it. And I want to kind of just take a second to really dig into that, just to understand that we both believe that as well, that we're both female leaders of our companies, and that peace of mind, that mindset, that I am jealous as all heck about you taking, just 2 weeks to shut it off, because I think what people don't realize is that, yes, it's scary. Yes, it's time away from your business, but what will you give back once you've done that? Right. How much better of a leader will you be once you get your mind and you clear your mind and your head and just have a better focus, be more focused. Yeah. So we're going to try to wrap this up. We could talk all day. I feel like it's been we're so happy
we need to roll right into happy hour though, ladies.
We do. Yeah. Yes. We can do that.
So we always like to ask our guests, since we're realtors, do you have any interesting or funny real estate stories?
Oh, well, I mean, my husband he just sold all his rental properties, so we have plenty of stories. From
I bet. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, so maybe this is a real estate story, I'm not sure, but one of the houses that because we lived in a lot of houses, but one of the ones in St. Louis, when we lived there, we all felt like we weren't the only ones living in the house. It had this vibe, but we never spoke of it. Right? So like I'm in middle school and I'm like, this place is weird. And my brother's thinking it, and my mom's thinking it, but like we don't speak of it until like a couple of years later, and we're all talking about the house, and I'm like, do you guys ever just have like this weird feeling there? And my brother's like, yeah, in the basement laundry room. I'm like, yes, like where that closet was. He's like, yeah. And then my mom tells us this insane story about seeing a little girl ghost in her room, and we're like,
oh my gosh.
So fast forward, I'm living in St. Louis, and my parents like, let's drive by our old house. So we drive by, and the family that lives there is like having a garage sale or something. So we stop. We're like, we used to live in this house, and they take us through and they show us everything they've done to update it, and it's so pretty. And I'm like, is my mom gonna go there? She goes there. She did. And she's like, can I ask, like, do you ever feel like maybe you're not the only ones living in the house? And the lady's like, yes. like in the laundry room by the closet. And she starts naming all the places.
Wow.
And then had also had some things that she had seen. And so that was just,
yeah.
you know,
And
or
to hear someone else
say like
it.
the exact spots that we
Exactly.
had
Wow.
always had like a feeling that like 15 years later that this family.
That's a great real estate
Is that a
story.
good real
It
estate
really-
story?
yeah, it really is.
Okay, yes.
Yeah,
I got
you
one.
nailed that. Nailed that.
I'll probably leave here and think of some other really good one. But that's what I got right now.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks again.
Thanks,
Thank you so
guys.
much
Thanks
for
for
joining
asking
us. It's been great fun. We always want to end thanking Gershman for letting us use their
Thanks,
recording
Gershman.
studio, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for listening to the Simply Authentic podcast. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
Be sure to listen to us on your favorite podcasting app.